Hey everyone, it's Lauren here, and we're going to get our mixed media messy on, and we're going to break all the rules of tidy and neat and all that kind of stuff. So I've got a photo here of my son. He's getting ready to go on camp, and I'm just going to pull out what I'm going to work on. Why is it so long from the intro? Did I not delete the right parts? Goodness gracious. Oh, sorry. My video software was being a bit slow. Obviously, in all this time while I was in and ahhing, I was using that time to get all these letters off the alpha sheet so that I could put them on this plastic and make a big long title. So I pulled in my second photo of my other son. They both went to camp at the same time this year, so it was nice to have 3 days kid-free, even though I still had to work, but that's okay. So I decided I was going to use my Distress Oxide inks for this layout to add some mixed media to it. Again, these are from my stash, but I pulled them in with my prep video to use some of my mixed media stash in so that I can kill my kit. So just have a little rough idea of where I'm going to put the photos and that long title, and then I'm going to use these Distress Oxides. So I'm literally just turning it upside down and smushing it up and down, and that just gives you that nice little rough look and covers the whole page. It's really fun actually. It's really hard to stop doing that because it just slides so nicely and the colour just glides and goes on really nicely. Just a quick dry. Distress Oxides dry so quickly. It's really fun, even without the heat gun, but because I just am really impatient. Anyway, I'm just spraying some water onto my hand and then I'm flicking it on top of the colour, and that's just going to be the bleaching technique. So I'm going to wait a few moments and then put some paper towel down and it's going to pick up the colour. So you can see some parts worked a bit more than the rest, partly because there was a little bit more water in those sections, and I only waited like maybe 2-3 minutes when you could definitely wait more. So I'm going to use the stencil that we got in the kits and just use the sponge dauber with the distress ink, and this is the Faded Jeans, I believe, colour. Anyway, you could check the colours in my prep video if you're wanting to know, or leave me a comment down below and I'll comment back and check on the colours. So I'm just going through the stencil, and to make sure it's random and not like all these straight edges, I stay away from the sides of the stencil. So just doing in a small section in the middle, and if I wanted more then I just move the stencil into that same, move it over a little and just do that same section again. So I'm thinking it needs a border, so I'm going to pull out this pattern paper because then that way it matches the thickers. So I think a nice wood layout as a border as well as the thicker title, especially with the title being so big, is really fun. So I'm just taking 1/2 inch off, I believe it's 1/2 inch off each edge so that there is enough area to see the edge of the border. Sometimes I do a big border, sometimes I do, cut it smaller so that I can have a big border, and sometimes I cut it like this so there's not so much of a border. Anyway, so I'm going to use my distresser to distress the edges of the paper. So I'm just going really hard and rough so that I can get really straight, not really straight, oh my gosh, opposite of straight, literally the opposite, really roughed up edges that are all torn and scraped and rolled and just have some really good look to them, and it just makes it not such a harsh edge having that white straight edge on top of a border. And then to make it even more cool, I'm literally scrunching up my paper. So I'm making all those edges and making it more 3D rather than it sitting flat on top of the border paper. Giving it a ripped edge here, scrunching it down. It's just really fun. Another thing that is hard to stop once you start, is doing that, ripping and scrunching. Just going to add some ink splatters with that Jen Hadfield glitter spray, and this is really good. So for those people who liked the Heidi Swap Gold Colour Shine, this is just the same. It actually is. I didn't like the Heidi Swap one, and because it took so long, maybe I got a bad batch, but it took so long to shake up, and then I still wasn't getting the right look to it once it dried. But this is really quick. You don't have to spend very long shaking it, and it just is a really lovely deep colour. So I changed my mind. I don't want that brown as the border anymore. I want the blue, and then I pull out my blue Distress Oxide so that I can do the edges so that it's not harsh white, and it's just going to add, and then I also smudge it on top as well so that there is more blue to the background as well, and it also highlights those little the texture that the scrunching has given. So I go over with the I want to say it's ice spruce, but that might be the greenish colour. Anyway, if you need to know, let me know. And so just going to go over that again with that colour, just to make sure that it's layered up on top, not so that one layer, like the blue is standing out in a few sections as I'm on top of all the other colours and I'm not blending into the background. So adding some more of that grey on top meant it came back into layers rather than just top layer and all the rest. So just gutting the middle of my pattern paper so that I don't use all of it. I can literally use that bit there for some other layout in a different way. And I'm just going to glue this down. So I actually use fun foam to add these edges. Normally I would just use double-sided tape, but because I wanted that texture and height and dimension look to it, I use the fun foam. And again, squashing the edges so that it's not all straight and, perfect. I really wanted it grungy, if you couldn't tell already. So on we go, and I'm going to work out what kind of embellishments I'm going to use and how I'm going to finish off this layout. I decide that I'm going to use the blue Distress Oxide again, and I'm going to this time colour my thickers. So I'm pushing it down to get a big chunk of colour and then smushing a little bit to the side so that I can have the colour sit in on top of it, not just pool in different areas. So it doesn't take much, but it gets on pretty quick. Actually, I'm really surprised how well it stuck to the thickers. I thought maybe I might have needed to put the white paint pen on and wait for it to dry and then do it, or some gesso, but instead it worked pretty well. I didn't need it. So starting with the embellishments, I pick up all these, I look at these arrows, and that looks really nice. I can do a cluster and have 3 of them, rules of 3, and then I decide on these animal pieces and decide, because we're talking about camping, even though it's school camp and they're in cabins and nowhere near animals like this, it was just, it's camping and it's boys, so surely we can get away and use that little vague link to use them on the layout. So I've pulled out some pieces that are going to fit in with the theme and the colour scheme, and I'm just going to add another layer of this blue because it's dried, and I just need to make sure it's got a good amount of colour on it. I've glued them down, and then I'm going to distress that outer layer, so that blue probably would have been easier if I'd done it before I stuck down that top layer, but that's okay because I'm not being careful, so it's okay to be a bit rough and get it done like that. But it's really fun. I actually really like the distress tool, and when I didn't have it I was like, I don't need it, but I brought it. I don't even know why I brought it. Maybe it was free, or maybe I'd seen someone else that had it. Anyway, it's one of my most used tools, really. It sits in my top drawer with my StazOn ink, my hole punch, and my acrylic block, and they're probably the ones I always reach for. There's other stuff in that top drawer as well, obviously, but they're my top go-tos. So I'm just going to fussy cut out this little ephemera piece. This is part of the printables. So when I'm cutting and prepping for the month, I just cut the printables like this because sometimes I like to add a border and sometimes I don't. So I'm just keeping a little white border because that way it keeps the shape intact. So it doesn't look, if I'm cutting on the edge of the shape, I am not a great cutter, so I'll end up cutting it roughly and not have it even in one section. It's really easy to tell. But if you don't have it even with that white border, unless it's like massive, you can't tell that it's not even. So just gluing that up there and putting some fun foam underneath it to make sure it sticks up. And then I just got this little vellum piece that says XOXO. And you really shouldn't use wet glue with vellum because it curls up. But because it was so small, I knew I was putting glue on the whole thing. So I can glue that down. Just having a little play getting some stars out with the right colours. And I remember that we had these little resin stars, but I only have 2 left and that's not going to work for me. It needed 3 if not more. Have some in each cluster, but that's okay. I'm just going to use these grey silver stars and then I'm going to use this grey banner underneath here. So just building up the clusters. There's nothing, they're pretty simple. Actually, I was just enjoying the mixed media of this layout and was ready to do some more mixed media on a different layout. So I just wanted to make sure I got embellishing done so that I could move on to the next one. I don't know why lately, I'm pretty sure every layout I've done lately has had mixed media on it. Like as in for the last month and a half, 2 months maybe. Every layout's got mixed media on it. Which, is an awesome thing. I do love mixed media. But sometimes I don't get it out all the time. But it's been a great stress relief and just a lot of fun to just put medium onto the page and have fun getting messy. So I've pulled out the puffy stickers and I've put that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday big black puffy sticker because I figure days of the week camping, it sort of, went along, but it's also a nice little point there to join the cluster and the title. And I'm going to work on just finishing this off. I did put that circle puffy, but the blue was the wrong color, so I did pull that off. And I'm going to add some word stickers this time. Sometimes I forget that we have these word stickers on this sticker sheet, and it's really good that we do have the word stickers on there because you can never go wrong with a word sticker. But I'm just going to stick to one of them this time. Just having a little tidy up to see if there's anything else that I needed to add to the layout. Like this one. Nope, it's not going to work. Anyway, here's a close-up, so hopefully you've enjoyed the layout and you feel like you could get really messy and really grungy and scrunch up some paper and distress the edges just like I have in this layout. Enjoy your day and get creative. Have fun, guys. Bye.